Hello, it's Tuesday, 29th of June 2021, episode 113 of Mark Talks About His Record Collection. I may possibly run out of records eventually, but it might take some time. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favourite musicians, and I think musician is a broad word, but I'm going to talk about Brett Anderson and what happened after Suede split in 2003. So effectively I'm going to talk about the Tears, the band that Brett formed with Bernard Butler, and also his 4 solo albums, Brett Anderson, Wilderness, Slow Attack, and Black Rainbows. I think it was called, Black Rainbows, which were released between 2007 and 2011. The story starts with Suede's split in October 2003. The statement that Brett made at the time was something along the lines of that he needed to go and find his demon again. Even with the best will in the world, the last Suede album during the band's original incarnation, A New Morning, is not the best Suede album, nor is it anybody's favourite Suede album apart from possibly Alex Lee. And about half of the album is quite good, and about half of the album is less than quite good, and I'm not convinced that you could make a great album out of all of the material that the band had written at that time. And Brett had conquered his addictions. So if you've got an obsessive personality, you don't just go a little bit in, you go all in with something. And Brett became obsessed for a period of time with his addictions. He changed the focus of his addictions to other things, such as being focused on his music and his family. As somebody who has an addictive personality themselves, you could not possibly have guessed by looking at the wall of music behind me that I am obsessed with music. I have traded some forms of obsession and addiction over time for basically being obsessed with being able to say things like, I've got that on vinyl, which is actually a greater rush than any amount of alcohol. Well, that might not be true, but I'm not prepared to test the theory anymore. With the end of Suede, there's very telling anecdote. So on the 11th of November 2003, a band called The Darkness, which is effectively almost a postmodern parody of a cock rock spandex band, played the Astoria in 2003, and a member of Suede who wasn't Brett Anderson was at the show, and somebody asked him, "Where's Brett?" And the answer was, probably on the phone to Bernard Butler. Well, how little they knew, or more correctly, how predictable. After Suede split, Brett played one solo show at the invitation of, I think, a member of the Dutch royal family at their wedding, and played a show in May 2004, a 4-song acoustic show, where if you're going to be playing a stadium to celebrate a wedding in the royal family, the first song you're going to play, well, yeah, you're going to play a song called Love Is Dead with an orchestra, followed by 3 somewhat acoustic versions of Suede songs. Now, that was no portent or no indication of what was going to happen next. In the meantime, Brett had conversations with Bernard Butler, and I think it was an important conversation to have, because the split between Bernard and Brett when Bernard left the group was both very public and very acrimonious for quite a period of time. Bernard carved a solo path with some fantastic albums, both as a member of McCormick and Butler and in his own right, and created a very unique sound, a kind of British version of a power pop, orchestral, Phil Spector-ish, but without the creepy bits, kind of wall of sound. Orchestras, strings, fantastic stuff. So he did a solo album, People Move On, and another one, the name of which I have forgotten. They're both really good albums. And then the 2 albums with David McCormick and Butler, and the second one, Bring It Back. Both very, very good records. Probably going to talk about them at some other point. But effectively, the Tears, which was the name of the band which Bernard and Brett formed, was almost as if Brett had become the lead singer in Bernard's band, or with musicians that Bernard had been working with previously, including the drummer and a bass player, Nathan Fisher. Now, one of the things which you're meant to do if you go through, if you conquer an addiction or an obsession, is to come to terms with the events of the past, and if necessary, make reparations to people. And I think perhaps that might have been an unspoken kind of driver behind what happened. Brett rang Bernard, said, "Do you want to go for a curry?" And they did, and they talked. And I think the thing that people kind of forget is that Bernard and Brett were, for a long period of time before Bernard left the group, they were friends. And it's probably more important that they had a good relationship as people, as opposed to working together as a band. And so the Tears was effectively kind of like the promise of that. Brett said he needed to get his demon back, and he did so. But he did so in I think, quite a challenging way. Effectively, with Suede over, he had a completely blank canvas. He could do whatever he wanted. Now, when the Tears formed, a lot of people going, why isn't it called Suede? Which it wasn't, of course, because it wasn't Suede. But secondly, people were expecting the Tears to play Suede songs, which they did do a couple of times. They played The Living Dead, I think, in Sheffield, maybe London, maybe Glastonbury. Which, by the way, I think Suede hadn't performed with Bernard apart from at a TV appearance. But the Tears was a new band, and they opened themselves quite boldly as a new band. I think the first song that they played live was called Brave New Century, which is effectively an opening salvo that says, "The past is the past and we live in the future." So the first release which came out from the Tears was, I think, actually, I can't remember which one it was now. I think, it's this. It's Refugees. Refugees is the first song by the Tears. I almost showed you The Lovers instead, which is Refugees. And Refugees is a song that people may have thought was based upon a Suede song called Refugees, which Suede had played live in Iceland 5 years previously, but it wasn't. Refugees was a completely brand new song. And it's a fantastic song, absolute classic. By the way, do buy the Tears album, Here Come the Tears. It's really, really, really good. It's, I think, been overlooked in history, but it is, the last album that Anderson and Butler made together before the creative embers of the partnership finally fragmented. It is well worth a listen. Refugees is a fantastic song. The single came out on a 7-inch here, which is clear vinyl, and 2 CDs. Now, vinyl was dying in 2005. It really was on its arse. And so original vinyl pressings of the Tears, which hasn't been reissued, are staggeringly expensive, and I can't afford one. And I was living in a flat and I didn't have a huge amount of money, and so I didn't buy the vinyl edition of it, which I don't regret, because I made the right decision at the time. The B-side of The Lovers is a song called Breakaway. This is one of the best songs which has ever come out of the Anderson and Butler writing partnership. Breakaway is a phenomenal piano and voice ballad that should have been the last track on the album, and for some inexplicable reason it wasn't. Breakaway is bloody brilliant, and I absolutely adore it. It's just fantastic, and I tracked that song down hastily as soon as I had the opportunity to do so. There was 2 CD singles for the Tears, or more correctly for Refugees, one of which was backed with a track called Southern Rain, which is here, and this one, the more expensive version, was backed with Feels Like Monday and Branded. Now, you could argue that some of the B-sides didn't feel like Brett had really got his demon back. And I think maybe Brett was starting to have to learn how to write songs again, and to learn how to be creative in a new environment outside of Suede. Suede was everything he'd ever known up to that point, and to start again can be really, really difficult. When you go through a breakup with somebody, let's say you split up with your first girlfriend, and you then start going out with your second girlfriend, you kind of go, well, the only experience I've got has been with this one person or this one creative partnership. How do I how do I operate outside of that? And so there was an element of learning how to be, and learning who he was and who they were and how they worked together. So that was all kind of in the what is today the Soul Studio album by the Tears, Here Come the Tears, which is again a really good record. It's better than A New Morning, which is not necessarily a surprise. The Tears and Here Come the Tears took their name from a line in a Philip Larkin poem, the name of which I have forgotten because I haven't thought about it. I listened to this recently for the first time in a number of years, and I was surprised by how good the Tears was. Now, I saw the Tears once. I saw them at London Heaven in December 2004. I know they played live a lot through to about November 2005. I only saw them once because I became a parent and life went in a different direction for a period of time. I lost touch with some of the bands that I loved. I didn't stop buying the records, I just stopped going to the gigs because I couldn't go to the gigs because I was bringing up someone who was under the age of one, and my partner at the time had a difficult pregnancy and a difficult period after the pregnancy as well. No regrets about it, by the way, absolutely none. Here Come the Tears is a really good album. It's certainly better than A New Morning. It's better than some of Brett's solo albums, but it felt to me a little bit like an obvious choice. An obvious move would be to go back to working with Bernard to see if you could rekindle the fire. And sometimes it's like getting back with your ex. You probably shouldn't do it. It's very rare it's going to work. The same reasons why you split up the first time may exist the second time. And the world had changed dramatically. In 1992, Suede were the critics' darlings, and they were everywhere. They were all over TV, radio. They really had the spotlight shining on them. In 2005, Brett and Bernard were, I'm afraid to say, yesterday's men from an era that had gone away. Pulp had split, Oasis was staggering on, Blur had ground to a halt as a shadow of their previous band, Suede had split, Elastica had split. All the bands that were big at the time, apart from Oasis, had split, and the only reason Oasis hadn't split was because the two brothers had got a bunch of renter blokes in, and it wasn't the same band at all. And also, they were headlining stadiums. It's pretty hard to give up headlining stadiums if there's plenty of money in it. You can put up with being in a band with someone you really don't like, and Noel did for quite a long period of time. The Tears were never that big, and so the sole fruits of it were 2 singles, loads of gigs, and 1 album. So this is the album, very good, classic Bernard Butler production, Phil Spector-esque wall of sound, huge amount of orchestra, strings, keys, all of that stuff, grandeur, reach, and some fantastic songs, some of the best songs that the Anderson Butler brand ever released, such as Apollo 13, which is just brilliant, and Refugees, The Lovers, Breakaway, all really great songs that I wish I heard more of live. But the lyrics weren't as urgent. The melodies and the vocals perhaps weren't as urgent. When I was listening to the Tears, I didn't get the sense of a compulsion to create a kind of, you absolutely must hear our songs, they are fantastic. I didn't hear that in this album, which I did hear in the earlier Suede records, and I heard all the way through up to probably the end of the Coming Up period. That sense of compulsion, that sense of novelty. It felt like the Tears was a little bit like a job, and obviously, like all jobs, you have good days and you have bad days, but that doesn't mean the album doesn't have some fantastic moments on, because it absolutely definitely does, and I strongly recommend it. I also strongly recommend somebody reissuing it on vinyl. The second single from the album was The Lovers, which is as good as, again, anything off A New Morning. Here's the green vinyl, 7-inch. I love that shade of green, actually. I might take a photograph of that for my Instagram later on. Now, The Lovers is a great single. Again, would be a standout track on a Suede Greatest Hits album, and sadly overlooked by history. The B-side, Because You're Worthless, is not particularly good, is the nice way of putting it. There are also 2 CDs, and so here is CD 1, which is backed with Song for the Migrant Worker, and or this is CD 2, the CD-ROM of the video and the tracks Low Life and The Primitive on as well. Not great. The Tears played live for a bit longer. They had 2 more songs which they played. I think one was called Berlin and one was called Europe After the Rain. They are both available on YouTube. I'll put links down there for you to listen to them. But the band came to a close. And in 2006, it just got very, very quiet. Nobody really knew what was going on. Brett was working on his solo album, and he broke cover in late 2006 with a YouTube series of acoustic performances, including a number of new songs, and I think a cover version of Christina Aguilera's Beautiful. For some reason, those haven't been issued on DVD. But the first recorded kind of sounds that we had from Brett as a solo artist was this single, Love Is Dead, on Drowned in Sound Records. This is I think this might be the only studio recording on vinyl from Brett that was released during at the time. And Brett was working with a musician called Fred Ball, who now works as a songwriter and has written and recorded with other artists a huge number of very, very popular tracks indeed. And at the time, this was at the start of Fred's career, and he played keyboards, programming, string arrangements, co-wrote some of the songs with Brett, and also produced the album. So this is Love Is Dead, which is a strange choice for a single. Not a bad choice for a single, just a strange choice, because it's a fantastic song, but it's not very singly, it's not very poppy. And I think what Brett was doing at this point was really taking a step back and making a decision around, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And when you're not in the band anymore, you have the opportunity to do whatever you like. And whatever you like is 2 CDs and an album. So this is the first CD, which is backed with Clowns. Clowns is a great song, by the way. And this is backed with We Can Be Anyone and Mother Night. Both pretty good songs, but Love Is Dead is really, really where it's at. So the album itself is here. This is a promotional CD, and it was released on Drowned in Sound Records. I used to work for the Drowned in Sound website. I remember at the time that I was writing quite complimentary reviews of Suede and the Tears, that people that worked at the Drowned in Sound website told me that I should be writing about bands that aren't fogey bands, is I think the exact phrase that they used. I didn't have a great time working there. I was never paid for the work that I did there, and the way that they spoke to me, frankly, you need to pay me a fuck of a lot of money for me to put up with the way that I was being treated there. So I have no regrets whatsoever about thinking that the person that runs Drowned in Sound, or at least did at the time, was a twat. I am not a fan of that person at all. That guy said to me, we're never going to start a label, we're never going to put records out, we're never going to promote club lights. This is the thing that I want to do. We will publish anything that's passionate about any band, which turned out to be a crock of shit, because they didn't like me writing reviews around bands that were fogey bands like Suede, only cool bands like Radiohead. But I wrote uncomplimentary reviews of Radiohead, which they didn't like. And then they went and started a label, and presumably when they were in the discussions around having the label, somebody went, we've got lots of good reviews around you. Are you sure you wouldn't like to join our label? While at the same point saying to my face, stop writing about shit old bands like Suede. So the hypocrisy stinks there, and I am not a fan of that particular person. So, sorry, I wasn't expecting to do this. This is the Brett Anderson solo album. This is the promotional CDR that apparently is watermarked by Drowned in Sound Records, which is licensed from Brett Anderson. I never bought the commercial CD, actually, of the Brett Anderson solo album because I was broke. Sorry, guys. I've made up for it over time. This is a good stab at a solo album, but it very clearly is the singer from Suede who, even when you take the man out of Suede, you can't take the Suede out of the man. and some of these songs could be Suede songs. Brett is not a fan of some of the songs on here, so I think One Lazy Morning, Dust and Rain, Intimacy, they sound like songs that would be in the running for a Suede album. But at the same point, it also sounds like a solo singer who's in desperate need of a fantastic co-writer. And Fred Ball is pretty good, but he's not fantastic. And also, Fred was at the start of his career and he was learning how to write and learning how to be. There's no bad songs on here, but there's nothing that leaps out of the page and grabs you by the scruff of the neck and tells you, this is incredible, which is the thing that I've always wanted to have in every record that I've owned, is to be just blown away by how good it is. Live, Brett was very, very committed, always brought it, always sang his heart out, totally committed to what he was doing, complete artistic control, massive respect for that, unencumbered by the pressures of having to have hit singles or anything like that, which is good because he didn't have any. As a solo album, it's good, it's not great. I obviously couldn't do a solo album as good as that, and the album was followed up by a number of releases. The first one and most obvious one was an EP called Back to You, which was released probably around about July 2007. And Back to You is a song that was originally recorded by a band called Pleasure, with Brett as the co-vocalist. Pleasure was the solo band that Fred Ball had at the time. And the re-recording of Back to You is on here. It's not perhaps quite as good as the version that's been recorded by Pleasure, but it's really, really good. It's a fantastic song. I think Back to You is a strong, powerful song that should be better known. And it's back with 4 acoustic tracks, being studio recordings of Ebony, Infinite Kiss, Love is Dead, and Song for My Father. This is a really great EP. Please do get it if you can find it. But you probably won't be able to find it. That's not a flex or a show off, by the way. There was also 3 live albums released from this period. If you went to see Brett Anderson in London, you could take tonight's gig home on CD straight after the show, which was £14.11, I think, or £15 if you bought it from the store. And there was an acoustic soundcheck version of Back to You as well. So these were in the days when people were running studios and they were recording and mixing the show, pressing it to a CD live during the gig, and then selling it from the merch stall 10 minutes after the show had come to a close. These are fantastic recordings, by the way, limited to 1,500 copies. And this was recorded at the Sheperds Bush Empire on the 9th of May 2007, the second time that we saw solo Brett live with the band that recorded the album. So Jim Dare, I think, was on guitar, and he's a great guitar player. Matt was on bass from Suede, and there was a drummer and a keyboard player. And well, anyway, if you want to get live Brett Anderson, this is probably on YouTube. But if it isn't, have a look on Discogs. This is frequently made re-available on various USB sticks, badges, and various other formats of release. The second live album, by the way, it was recorded live at the Union Chapel in 2007. Brett's first solo tour with the band. Perhaps the tickets hadn't sold quite as well as he wanted to, and he decided he was going to slim down his lineup. So it was him, I think, a cellist, recorded at the Union Chapel, which was £15. And again, you waited after the gig, picked it up from the merch store, took it home, and fed it into your iPod. Double album of Brett with a guitar and I think it's another cellist, performing a large number of Suede and solo songs. These Suede and solo songs, by the way, just him and a voice and an accompaniment, absolutely brilliant, wonderful interpretations of the Suede solo career, by the way. And here is the third of them live at the Queen Elizabeth Hall on the 20th of October 2007, the 12th anniversary of my mother's death. Don't know why I mentioned that. But again, this is Brett with a guitar and I think a string section, and It sounds gorgeous and beautiful, and if you ever wanted to hear, just strip away everything else and just hear Brett performing the songs with him and a piano and a guitar and a string section, these are absolutely essential purchases that you must get or find. They are absolutely gorgeous recordings. And in 2008, a selection of songs from these 3 shows was released on this double vinyl album, The London Sessions, which, as I understand it, is quite expensive and hard to find now, because I think 1,000 copies of it were pressed, and they had inner sleeves here with photographs and the names of the people that had ordered the first 1,000. I don't think my name is on here, actually. Not that I mind too much, but plenty of names that I recognise in here, and it's lovely to see your names on my record. So this was a double vinyl album of recordings from the Shepherd's Bush Empire, the Union Chapel, and the Queen Elizabeth Hall. And the Queen Elizabeth Hall, by the way, features a medley of My Insatiable One, Clowns, and the cover of Frank Sinatra's It Was a Very Good Year. Absolutely fantastic live recordings, by the way. I strongly recommend, if you can find them, get them. If not, ask somebody if they've got a copy of it, they can send you an MP3 of. So that was the first Brett Anderson solo vinyl release as an album, The London Sessions, which is a double album of 20 songs recorded live in 2007. The next thing that happened was that Brett announced that he was going to be playing a show at the, I think it's the Queen Elizabeth Hall again, in June-ish, 2008. People that bought tickets for the Queen Elizabeth Hall show were going to get a free copy of Brett's upcoming album, Wilderness, but they were going to get it on a USB stick. Here is the USB stick. This is a bizarre format for an album. It's a USB stick with Brett's name on. You stick it into your computer, and you get 256k MP3s of the 9 songs that are on the Wilderness album. And the Wilderness album, I think after the first solo album, where Brett tried to step out as a solo artist with a band in much the same way as many people have done, reminds me a little bit of people like Morrissey or Mark Almond, or people from New Order, is that they start again. And commercially, if you find that the spotlight of fame and fortune is stepped away from you, you've still got a viable solo career. You just maybe haven't got one that can necessarily carry a full band and play to packed houses everywhere. So it was probably quite a humbling experience, actually, to experience 3 albums that perhaps didn't really sell perhaps as much as you might have expected them to. So A New Morning, Here Come the Tears, and the Brett Anderson solo album. And so what Brett did is, I think he stripped his career to a skeleton, and he recorded this album, Wilderness, which is almost a declaration of going, you can't put me in the wilderness, I've decided to go out there. It's 40 days in the wilderness, where he's away from selling very big venues out and having a band with him. And it felt a little bit of a struggle to be a fan there. I could see that the world had moved on. People that were fans of Suede 15 years before had grown up, got jobs and kids and mortgages and cars, and were into golf and stuff. And well, apart from the golf and the cars, yes, I was one of those people, but I was still madly into the music that saved my life and changed who I was and helped define who I was. And I was never going to give that up, because a good band is not for Christmas, it's for life, and that includes solo artists. So I was very keen for Brett's solo career to be successful, but he'd stripped his career down to the bare bones, and it was just him and a piano and a guitar and a second player that was doing strings, who also played with him live. So it was Brett and Amy Langley on cello, with guest vocal on one track by Emmanuel Seigner, whose name I've never pronounced before. So this is 9 songs that haven't been on any album before, but if you've been buying the singles, there's the song Clowns, and the song Back to You is on here. So effectively it's 7 new Brett songs on an album that came out probably about 15-16 months after the first solo album with the band. It was, and the last time I saw Brett solo was at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. I was due to go and see him at the Shepherd's Bush Empire in 2008 on this tour, again with him and Amy, and I broke my ankle and I couldn't go, and I didn't see Brett as a solo artist after that, for whatever reasons. Things like singles and stuff didn't really happen at this point. There were hardly anybody was doing singles, let alone somebody who'd been in a band that wasn't being particularly successful. So what I did do is I just bought the albums. Really, my life had changed dramatically since I was able to go and see Suede everywhere all over the world, and I'm sure lots of other people were in the same kind of position as me. Is that your life had changed, and I tried to take as much of me going to see gazillions of shows a year with me on the way, but not all of it could be successful. The third solo album is called Slow Attack, and I listened to this today in the bath. I don't know why I'm telling you that. I listened to it in the bath, and I wasn't old enough or mature enough to appreciate it when it came out. I listened to it today and I thought, this is really, really good, because effectively what Brett's done is he's stripped his career back to the very, very basics, to just him and a guitar and maybe one other player, and now he's starting to rebuild his career and remold his artistic and creative identity to be something post-Suede that is creatively satisfying and successful. And sometimes you need to strip everything back and start again and then build on top of it. The temptation, and it happens when you change jobs as well, the temptation is just do more of the same. So the first solo album, yes, you've got a guitarist, you've got a bass player, you've got a keyboard player, you've got a drummer, you've got the band, you've got the same configuration, and perhaps forced by necessity and money, you then start to go, well, what do I actually really, really need? And you kind of go, well, I don't need the guitar, I don't need the bass, I don't need the drums, I maybe need the keyboards. And then you rebuild, and then you add, and then you mold it into exactly what it needs to be from a new start, a new beginning. Very definitively a new morning, in fact. And so I think Slow Attack is really, really good. It's my second favourite of his solo albums. And I'll go through the rankings on those later on, but it's got some fantastic songs on it. But also at the same point, the live shows were very stripped back, in so much as there were no Suede songs that were in the live shows. There were all songs that were on the solo albums, really as a solo artist. And it reminds me a lot of Mark Almond, his solo career. He kind of almost tore up everything that he'd been doing previously and started again. And not to the same degree of success. And people go, oh, if you go and buy a solo album by somebody, it's only 1/5 as good as the band, 'cause it's only 1/5 of the band. Well, the answer is that's bollocks. It really is. These solo albums that Brett has made are really, really good. They're sometimes very, very different from Suede, and sometimes absolutely not where I was at the time that those records came out, but they have aged fantastically and I've grown into them. So I listened to the fourth and to date final solo album by Brett, which is called Black Rainbows, again today, and this is brilliant. I love this. This is probably my favourite of his solo albums. It sounds to me like a very Susie and the Banshees influenced album. Lots of spindly guitar lines, lots of big drama in there. Just a great record, actually. Really, really love this. Wish I'd seen him live. I was struggling with depression at the time, and I was barely going to any shows at the time, and that's why I didn't see him on this tour. I just really struggled with some circumstances, and seeing bands was not a number one thing on my life. But this is Black Rainbows. It's a great album, but again, where Brett was at the time was not where I was. Somewhere a little bit different. So there was also one last release, kind of like a carry on from the live recordings previously. This was by Live Here Now, also known as Abbey Road Live, which was Brett Anderson live at Camden Coco on the 12th of October, with Jim Dare on guitar, Dids Hammond on bass, and Chris Son, who played drums on some of the albums, on drums as well, and it's a double CD recorded live at what was one of his very last, if not the last, solo show that Brett played. Really good recording. Really recommend this if you can find it. Again, probably difficult to find, but luckily you can find most of it on this, which is the Brett Anderson collected solo work box set that was released, I think, in 2017. So 2017 was the year that Suede took a year off, primarily, I think, to rest after having 6 years of working very consistently, but also so Brett could finish his first book, Coal Black Mornings. And 2017 was also tied in with a reissue of his solo catalogue, which was repressed on vinyl in this box set, Collected Solo Works. And this CD box set of 5 discs, again, Collected Solo Works. Actually, this is 6 discs, but let's go through what's on here. So on the vinyl box set, which if you ordered from Amazon came with a signed print, let's open it up and see what we've got in here. So we've got a very nice box. We've got a signed photograph of Brett during the recording of, I think, his first solo album, but probably not. We've got the first vinyl pressing of the solo album, Brett Anderson, featuring, like all good albums, a cat on the cover there. These were pressed on black vinyl. There are also individual pressings on coloured vinyl with inner sleeves and all the lyrics that are on there. Then you've got a vinyl debut again for Wilderness here, again with an inner sleeve and some lyrics on the back, again pressed on black vinyl. Then again, Slow Attack here gets its vinyl debut on the box set, again pressed on black vinyl with an inner sleeve and lyrics. And Black Rainbows gets I think its vinyl debut here 6 years after it came out, because everyone was buying vinyl now. CDs were dead. You know, the fact that anybody's paying any money for any music is still pretty staggering, actually, considering everything's free on Spotify. But it isn't free on Spotify. It costs the artists money. And the idiot that runs Spotify thinks that the solution is to just record more stuff and stick it on Spotify, as opposed to for him to stick his hand in his pocket, stop being richer than God, and actually pay the artists that create everything, because that chap is a parasite, and I will tell him to his face if I ever meet him. Not that I ever will, because I'm not important enough. And yeah. So there's the Collected Solo Works box set. Well worth getting. Individual vinyl editions of them are on coloured vinyl. Again, well worth getting. So if you're tempted and go, well, there isn't going to be a Suede album for a little while because of COVID. If you ever think, I quite fancy hearing some Brett Anderson songs I haven't heard before, these are the ones to go for. Of course, if you really like CDs, you've also got this option here, which is a 6-disc set of 5 audio CDs plus a DVD. And each of the audio CDs has the album on, one of the 4 albums, plus associated bonus tracks here. So for example, the acoustic songs, which are on the Back to You EP, on Wilderness, you've got some extra acoustic versions, and you've got some live stuff from the Union Chapel. Slow Attack, you've got 2 download only songs there, With You, Within You, I think that's a Beatles song, I could be wrong, and Forest Lullaby, and Black Rainbows, which also contains 3 extra songs and a couple of alternate versions of Brittle Heart. CD 5 contains an edited highlights of the Camden Cocoa Show, plus an extra 6 songs recorded at Berlin in 2010, and those were only sold as a USB stick or as a download. There is also a DVD in this set. The DVD features an interview between Brett Anderson and Luke Turner. There are no regional restrictions on the DVD. So let's quickly go through the box set, but also would like to point out that the promotional videos that do exist, the ones that were on Brett's YouTube and the ones that were filmed for things like Love Is Dead and Back to You, are not on the DVD. And to be honest, I don't know why. I wish they were. They should have been. Maybe you didn't want to pay Christina Aguilera umpteen quids for the rights to put Beautiful by her on there, even though it was a YouTube hit. So anyway, that is, if you're thinking, I want to buy all of Brett's solo discography in one easy, handy to get place, this is the baby to get. Absolutely fantastic. Now, of course, if you really, really love vinyl, there is one last release to get excited about. The Record Store Day edition of Live at Coco, which features, I think, the same songs as are on here, the same 12 songs, as opposed to the 20 or so which were on the CDR. And this is a Record Store Day release for 2017 on green vinyl. Effectively a fifth disc that slots inside your Brett Anderson Collected Solo Works box set, although I'm not sure there's enough space in the box to slip it in. This is the main body of it. That is the Brett Anderson solo discography. The only other thing I will mention is that Brett has done a couple of guest vocals. He's done one, I think, for an artist called, I think, David Armstrong. He sang a song called Crash. Absolutely beautiful song. I will post up the link to that. And everything else is me going to be talking about what happened after the 23rd of March 2010, which is when Suede reformed. They played the Royal Albert Hall. They made some more studio records, and they did what I regard to be one of the best comebacks of history. Certainly better than almost everyone else I can think of. That is a guide to solo Brett Anderson and the Tears. The Tears album, really, really good. If you want to buy the Brett solo stuff, if you can find it and you can afford it, much like the A-Team, this is the box set to get. Otherwise, the albums have had releases on vinyl in the past few years, and also had CD releases at the time. That's where I'm going to wrap up this. It has been a very long time since I've spoken about Brett, and I've had a couple of people ask about, well, when are you doing the Tears and when are you doing Brett solo? And the answer is I do this stuff when the mood strikes me, when I feel I go through phases with artists, and every once in a while I go, I'm just going to listen to that. And recently I've been listening to a lot of Brett solo. I've also been listening to a lot of David Bowie, including Tonight, which never gets better. No matter how many times I try and listen to it, it never gets anything less than absolute rubbish. But that's where I'm going to wrap up. Hopefully that's given you... I don't mean to cost you any money, by the way. If you go out and buy these things, don't blame me. No one's forcing you to do it. I think that all the albums you can try before you buy on Spotify. Not like in the oldie days when you get a review and you think, well, the only way I can actually hear if this record's any good is if I buy it, and then you buy it, and if it's rubbish, you've got to live with that record for a week. Now, of course, everything is available for streaming. So the next time I talk about what happened next is the Suede reunion, which is a story for sometime in the future. If you've got any suggestions about what I should talk about, put some comments down there. I will take them on board, and if I think I can do something worthwhile, I'll respond to it. But in the meantime, stay beautiful, look after yourselves, be lovely to everybody. I'll see you again soon. Thank you, and bye.